Hey everybody, it's Maria and I am doing my April wrap up. Now, April was weird for reading. I read some really great books. I deemed it tome top-a-thon the whole month because I knew I was not going to do that in 2 weeks. I'm still finishing up some tomes that I had on my list. I'm enjoying them still, but I just had a lot going on. I also did the Shakespeare birthday party today and our Charlotte's Web book club for our homeschoolers this month, as well as worked on family scrapbooks that I'm trying to get done before my publisher closes down next week, which I'm really sad about. If you know a photo book company that you really like, put those reference links down below because I'm having a hard time. My publisher is great quality and I'm gonna be sad when they're gone. So I also got those done. My husband has started up a master's program he's working on, so I'm kind of trying to make sure I'm supportive of him. Anyway, my brain has been 1,000 different places, but I still managed to read a lot of books. I don't know how I did that. I did find out from Tome Top-a-thon that I cannot read multiple long books at the same time. It just almost broke my brain. I will not be doing that again. I need to have like one longer book and several like shorter 300 pagers just to kind of break it up, the monotony. So anyway, some of the videos or some of the books I already talked about in other videos, I'll link those below. So the other books that I read, Dear Ajiwala, which is a feminist manifesto and 15 suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I thought it was a really good book. It's very short. So if you are, it's really short. I read it in a couple hours. I think it was really good. I think it would have been better for me if I had read it in my early 20s. A lot of the stuff I've kind of already processed in my life, especially having gone through parenting, and I majored in family science and psychology, so I thought a lot about gender roles already in my life. But I think especially would be a good primer for somebody who feels like they're new to the whole feminist idea or they're going to be a new parent. It would be a great baby shower gift. So that was a really good book. But it would have been better for me at a different time of life. I read Shakespeare by Bill Bryson. Now, I really like Bill Bryson. I think the book was different than I expected. It was based on the premise that we don't know much about Shakespeare, and so this is kind of all the things that we've kind of, as a community, thought of Shakespeare or how Shakespeare has changed us. So that was interesting, but it was okay. It wasn't my favorite Bryson, but maybe that's not very fair because there's not as much information about Shakespeare to write about. There's also Shrill, Notes from a Loud Woman by Lindy West. I thought this was another good book. I enjoyed it probably more than Dear Ajiwala. There were several essay bits that I read out loud to my husband, which is generally a good sign, especially I don't know, he might not have enjoyed it as much as I did, but I liked the idea of how we portray ourselves as women because of society, which again, it's been talked a lot about, but I feel like she had some new ideas, which I appreciated. I also read Muslim Girl, Coming of Age Story by Amani Al-Khattabi. I think I'm saying her name right. This was another short book, but very, very good. It's written by a girl who, right after 9/11, is kind of where it starts. And so she talks about her American experience as a Muslim girl coming of age after all of that, what people perceive her as or don't perceive her. She chooses to wear the hijab and her mom doesn't, which I thought was really interesting. Her reasons as to why she chooses to and how it's difficult for her when she's out with her mom and her mom isn't, and how they're treated differently. And it made me really want to dive in more with reading books written by other Muslims about their experience. I'm not as familiar as I should be. I've been planning to read the Quran some this year, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. So it was a good reminder of my goal. And yeah, I really recommend that book, especially if you feel like you are out of your depth in that arena. Another really great book, which honestly is going to be in my top 5 for the year, I'm sure, is Florence Gordon by Brian Morton. This was a fiction story about an octogenarian who was a feminist icon at her time. Now, what I like about it is Brian Morton actually intersperses her story with real people and events that happened. So you hear about Gloria Steinem and her rubbing shoulders with her. And even though Florence Gordon is not a real person, you can imagine her being that because the other people and events in the story are real. But it's about her. She's a writer, and she's writing her kind of her essays and her memoirs, and she's always been known for her writing. She's not known for being a very nice person. She tells it like it is. It starts off with her going to her birthday party and abandoning it because she wants to go write. And you might not love her from the get-go, but as the story progresses, you understand her. He does a really great job of different voices because you also get in other people's in the story's heads. So you find out about her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter and her son and the problems they're having, not just with her, but with their own lives. And what I really loved about the story is how it weaves in the idea that sometimes we feel like people are treating us a certain way because of something we've done, when really it's them bringing in their own baggage and their own thoughts to the situation. And I loved that. There were so many little great life tidbits in there. And while I got this from the library, I will definitely be purchasing myself a copy because I want to read it again and again. So yes, Florence Gordon, highly recommend. And I did a video on that one and Muslim Girl together. So another one that I really loved, and I think I've talked about this one too, is Ian McEwan's Nutshell. And this is a really tiny book, but it's a Hamlet retelling told from the story of an unborn child. and I don't want to say too much about it because there's a lot of spoilers if I did, but it's just perfect. And you can see how many times I tabbed. I need to also buy myself a copy of this one because I want to mark it up. And it's really, not only did it make you want to read super slowly so you didn't miss a morsel of a sentence, it made you think about how we are post utero. What things strike us as being exciting or different? How do we view people when we see them in person as opposed to just hearing things that they're saying or doing? How do we make our choices when some of our choices might influence our own life? It was just really, really great retelling. I really loved it. It made me probably want to pick up some of his. He also wrote Atonement, and I've seen the movie, but I've not read the book. So it made me kind of interested in some of his other work. So I highly recommend Nutshell because the premise was interesting. The language is beautiful and very thought-provoking about life. I just loved it. I did another video on that. Another one I read was The Perfect Comeback of Caroline Jacobs. And this I read is by Matthew Dix, who does a podcast I really like called Boy vs. Girl. He has written several other books, and I never read any of his books, but I liked him in a podcast, and I heard an interview with him. He's actually the one who talked about Nutshell in the book podcast I was listening to. And this book is about a mother and a daughter and their relationship and how they have let the past kind of affect how they live. Caroline Jacobs was slighted as a high schooler, as most of us were. And instead of kind of fighting back against it at the time, she just kind of burrowed up in her shell. And through the turn of events in the very beginning of the book, she gets very angry. Some baggage is brought up because she feels like she's put in that same emotional state as she was put in high school. Somebody was bullying and she just wasn't going to take it anymore. She'd had enough, and she stood up to the bully and then realized she wanted to go back and face her childhood bully. So I think this is kind of a really cool idea. I mean, we all have those moments in time where either we were the bully or we were bullied and we want to go back and change it. And this made you, whichever side of the coin you were on, it made you think about how you would handle the situation. Obviously, it's never going to be as we play out in our imaginary fantasy lives. And it also shows how her act of bravery sparked her new relationship with her daughter that had kind of been falling apart, how her daughter inspired her to bravery, and how different people were affected because of those acts of bravery. And it was just a really fun read. I read it in the evening. Very fun. But yeah, childhood bullies, they're always in our brains, aren't they? Next up was another fun one. And because I'm reading Van Gogh, The Life, it's going much slower than I would have liked because life. I did want to pick this up. It was a 14-day hold at the library, so I had to read through it quickly. And just look at the cover. Oh, Vincent and Theo, the Van Gogh brothers. And this is written by Deborah Heligeman. Heligeman. We're going to go with that. And she, yes, I loved the content of the book. She did a great job with the research. A lot of it, I mean, is very solid. Goes through both Vincent Van Gogh and Theo Van Gogh's life and how they were interwoven, how their relationship worked, how they inspired one another, how they were hard for each other or good for each other, how the world would not have worked without both of them, their inner demons, that stuff was solid on here. The thing that was difficult and why I can't give it a 5-star or maybe even a 4-star review is because the writing, she would have great sentences, just punch you in the gut sentences. And then the rest of it was just written very YA, not saying anything bad about YA, but very simplistically. And I don't often get picky about stylistic author choices, but this was just very much like, oh, you've got so much meat there. Just dig in and don't just, it was a lot of, Vincent did this, Theo did this, Vincent then went this, Theo thought like this. And it was very elementary with some of that. And I just wanted her to not do that because I loved the book. I just didn't like her writing. So if you don't mind about that, then pick it up. If you do mind about it, don't do it. It'll drive you crazy. Read Van Gogh The Life instead, or maybe Lust for Life by Irving Stone. That's I read parts of that one, and that's similar information without the simplistic writing. So Happily Ever After, Mary, you'd asked before about a Van Gogh recommendation. This would be great as long as you don't get annoyed by very simplistic sentences on occasion. So other than Jane Eyre, which I'm still trudging through, and Van Gogh, this was my tome that I toppled. It was Ken Follett's Fall of Giants. Wow. I mean, this was almost 1,000 pages, so it is now the longest book that I have ever read. So congratulations to me. I will be picking up, I have the second one already, but I will be picking up the third one as well because I am a Ken Follett fan. This book sold me on it, and I've heard Pillars of Earth is also really, really great. So I'm excited about diving in to Ken Follett. And I also heard a rumor on Goodreads that he has written some shorter books too. So I'm excited about that. This is a century trilogy. It follows basically 5 or 6 families through a century of time. So it starts off around World War I time. I think 1911 might be the first entry. And then it goes up until 1924. So it covers quite a bit of time and quite a bit of continents and people, but he did a phenomenal job of character building. Do you know how sometimes in books when it gets to a new chapter and they flip a person like they're talking about and you're like, oh, I just want them to get back to that person. I just want to hear about this particular character. I did not feel like that. I always wanted to hear more about whichever character I was reading, which I think says a lot because it keeps pushing you through because you want to get to their next part of their storyline and then you remember, oh, I forgot I love this person too. I want to see how that goes. I think he did a really good job of talking about the complexities of war, how it affected people's families, relationships, how it affected immigration. It talks a lot about different kinds of people. There was a brother in here who was always the responsible, take care of people person who was a good guy. And then there was the brother who was all out for himself and kind of more of a womanizer and never learned his lesson. It also talks a lot about the suffragette movement in Great Britain, which I also really liked hearing more about. So I'm really excited to see where these characters go. I know I'll hear more about the next generation after them, and I always think that's really interesting. I loved Ya Jesse's Homegoing when it just talks about, you kind of see the ripple effects of things that have happened with past generations in the future. So yeah, if you don't mind, and even if you are scared of big books, I liked this one. So don't feel like you have to read it in a certain amount of time. Take breaks if you need to, but can follow it. You get an A+. So that is, I think, oh, and the other thing I read with my kids, The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan we listened to, which was great. I am so excited to keep going on the Rick Riordan bandwagon with my kids. They were so excited when we finished. They wanted to listen to it again, and I said, why don't we just listen to book 2? We've been looking at Egyptian mythology books all over the house, and now my boys are talking about their joint Egyptian mythology Red Pyramid birthday party, which isn't till the fall, but they're really excited about it. We also read Charlotte's Web, which again I cried at because I cry every time I read Charlotte's Web. It's just so beautiful. So those are the things that I read or listened to in the month of April. I'm hoping that next month I know I won't be as busy. I always say that, but I'm pretty sure I won't be. So I will hopefully be able to finish Van Gogh and Jane Eyre. That said, I would love to hear, what have you guys been reading? What have you been enjoying? Have you been in a reading funk? Or at least feeling like it? I would love to hear that in the comments. And I don't say it enough, but just thank you guys so much for watching and listening and hearing me babble on about all my thoughts and feelings on the books I read. You really make it more fun for me. Obviously, sometimes it's hard when you feel like you don't have enough to put out or you don't know how you think on things. So I appreciate your encouragement. I appreciate all the great comments that you guys have. It's why I'm part of BookTube. So I will talk to you all later, and happy almost May. Bye.